Welcome back, everybody. It is November 5th. It is election day. Make sure to go out and vote today. We are back here with our rankings coming off of week 10. League titles have basically all been wrapped up. Some very exciting, interesting results from last week, some mixing up in our rankings this week. One final week here of the regular season to play. Next time we talk to y'all, playoff picture will be set. Brackets will be out. I think we'll do one more ranking next week to kind of talk about our final regular season rankings, and then maybe do a little deep dive into some of the playoff brackets too. I'm very excited to kind of see how that plays out with this new format. But we still have one more week of football to play, and Kienan, our rankings this week definitely quite a bit of movement. Some very I'd say some upsets. Some exciting games. The American Kienan Costa game was great. Vintage upsetting San Marin. Cardinal Newman falling to Marin Catholic. Lots of stuff to talk about this week. So very exciting week 10. Last week definitely around the area.
Yeah, no doubt. I think we said it in last rankings video. We wouldn't be surprised if things shifted even more after this past week, and it certainly delivered. A lot of teams had to brave the weather for sure. It was a big monsoon, I know, or whatever it was. I know it was raining where you were at. It was raining where I was at. It was raining pretty much everywhere. So, teams really had to fight, really had to battle it out, and improve for some good games, honestly, and some solid results. But Gus, I'll let you start it off with our rankings this week.
Yeah, our bubble teams kind of staying the same here. Sonoma Valley, one win away from completing an undefeated regular season. Now sitting at 9-0. Again, just because they're in the Mountain Division, haven't quite really gotten any wins that would kind of push them over any of our top 7 teams at this point. Maria Carrillo lost to Ukiah last week. Lost to Ukiah last week. Ended a 6-game winning streak for the Pumas. Again, like you said, very sloppy game last week up in Mendocino. That grass field I heard was just a total mud bowl up there between Carrillo and Ukiah. But yeah, Ukiah is also sticking there at our bubble too at 6-3. So same 3 teams on the bubble this week. And I guess unless Carrillo upsets St. Vincent this week, I think that's probably going to stand pat here for the rest of the way. So same 3 teams on the bubble this week.
Yeah, that's kind of the one reason why I was on the turf field last week. I was happy about that because imagine being on that grass field up in the Mud Bowl. Kind of gives me flashbacks to your experience last year at Tamales High in the NCS championship game. Yeah. A little bit, but tough place to play, Ukiah, especially when it's raining. No doubt about it. But yeah, the bubble squad is still intact for another week, and we'll see how this final week of the regular season treats them.
Bubble gang staying put here after week 10. Number 7, staying put, Rancho Cotati 4-5. Lost, I think the 4th straight loss last week. Again, sloppy game against Windsor 18-6. The Rancho returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown, and that was kind of the only offense they really got going all game. Really good defensive effort from Windsor. Just again, second win for Windsor. That's just was really gritty and stuff. And Rancho, again, to their credit, Rancho was kind of in the game until late. Windsor scored with about a minute left, but it was, at that point it was a 1-score game, but just again, wet field, wet ball, just hard for either team, really to get much going kind of offensively. But yeah, Rancho, again, we've mentioned this the last couple of weeks, but they have to win this week against San Marin to make the playoffs. They haven't missed the playoffs since 2003. So, a long playoff streak on the line this week in their season, in the regular season finale. But they're staying tough. Again, this week could be very interesting. I would not be surprised if there's some weird results. We've heard some
gamesmanship.
We've heard some rumblings that some of these, some teams might be resting their starters, kind of, going into the playoffs, with playoff, seeding kind of already, or with their playoff spots kind of already. Wrapped up and secured, and they might be trying to head into those games, next week, a little more healthy. So we'll see. Rancho has a very tall test this week at San Marin. San Marin obviously coming off 2 straight losses. So we'll get to that here in a second. But Rancho 4-5, sitting at number 7, but fighting for their playoff lives this week.
Yeah, I don't want to take up too much time on this because I know we'll do a longer video possibly on it next week, but it's kind of pretty interesting. This new NCS format has let us see some of the some new strategies to say the least in terms of playoff clinching and playoff eligibility and stuff like that. So yeah, Rancho, like you said, must-win game at San Marin. Never counting the Cougars out though. Never counting Coach Gary Coatailing out. So we'll see if they can get that playoff clinching win there on Friday night.
Yeah, I think coaches. I mean, again, this has kind of been the underlying theme kind of with this format, and it's kind of played out also in other sections as well. But losing sometimes tends to benefit teams actually in this format. So we will see how things play out this week. It should be very interesting. But speaking of losing actually might benefit you, let's jump up to our number 6 team, American Canyon. Dropping 2 spots, lost to Casa Grande last week, exciting game. Casa Grande now is a win away from clinching the RC Valley title. That was kind of the game that we had, circled, all season long in that division. But yeah, I mean, we're talking about kind of some of the seeding stuff, but I had American Canyon, I think, as a 7 or 8 seed over in division. I think it was Division 2. Heading into that game, and after they lost, they're actually like a 2 or 3 seed, I think, now in Division 3. So they kind of did that drop and back up top to a smaller division thing. So might have benefited them in the long run. Who knows? We'll see. But again, undefeated season. No longer on in the cards for American Canyon, but still having an amazing season at 8-1, looking to wrap up. Again a great season this week against Redwood. But yeah, dropping 2 spots this week, and again, not really through much fault of their own. I mean, again, losing to the number 3, to the number 3 team, maybe not like, for a normal week, you probably wouldn't cost a team, dropping 2 spots, but Vintage obviously is our big riser this week after beating San Marin. So we'll talk about that one here in a second too. But yeah, American Canyon here coming in at number 6 down from number 4 last week.
Yeah, considering the way they lost to Casa Grande last year, Gus, this game was, I was at this game. It was a lot more competitive. Sure. But at the end of the day, 6 turnovers by American Canyon in the rain did not help at all. But they were still only down 10 at half, 17-7. Yeah. Had a couple shots to get back in the game and really possibly win it. But at the end of the day, it was Casa just showed why they're Casa, and I don't expect American Canyon not to bounce back this week against Redwood. I think they will bounce back big time this week against Redwood, so they can head into the playoffs with a bit of momentum there. But as for now, drop down to number 6 in our rankings.
Jumping on up from number 6 to number 5 this week is St. Vincent. Took care of business against Montgomery, 49-13. That game was actually a little closer than I thought it might be, I think, for a little bit, and then and then St. Vincent actually, just kind of opened the doors up, a bit in the second half, and ran away with it. I don't think to really anybody's surprise, but St. Vincent kind of cruising right now too. I mean, big win as well, kind of coming off of that Ukiah win, the other week as well. You might expect, hey, maybe a bit of a emotional drop off spot. How do you kind of build off of your biggest kind of win of the year? And yeah, I mean they no drop off whatsoever. So should be a good game again this week too. I know Carrillo lost to Ukiah and it wasn't super close, but Carrillo has some dudes, and they run the heck out of the ball. So could be a physical, grinded out beat 'em up game. This week at Carrillo, for the Mustangs. But they're looking good. They're, I think, the number 2 seed right now in Division 5, which is the highest that they can go. And you think, probably a win over Carrillo might give them that 1 seed. So, they're definitely playing for something this week, I'd say.
Yeah, totally. I think that Carrillo Ukiah game was actually pretty closer than people thought. At least to start. I think it was like 14-14 at halftime, and then Ukiah really pulled away there. But yeah, St. Vincent, it's as far as projections go, like you said, kind of locked up one of those top 2 seats there in Division 5, and we'll see what the committee. That's one of the kind of races we're kind of looking at. I guess we kind of have circled to see what the committee does with that 1 and 2 seed in Division 5 with them and Salesian. So definitely need to put on a strong performance against Carrillo to really boost their case for that 1 seed for sure. But as of now, they're bumped up to 5 in our rankings.
Yep. Coming in at number 4, we've mentioned them actually a couple times already, but Vintage, they're only jumping up one spot after their big upset win, 17-7 over San Marin. San Marin was coming as, I think, the number 8 team overall in the NCS. And Vintage, again, kind of went back to their ground and pound style. They've been much more of a throwing team this year, but, with the rain, I talked to Dylan Leach after the win, and he was like, I loved it. Like, it was just, sloppy, wet. Like they they had like 8-9 minute drives, just, ran the ball down San Marin's throat, and got a couple big turnovers too. So just a, really, really big quality win for Vintage. And, they've looked kind of like one of these like surprise, like kind of underdog teams, I guess you could kind of say, or like underrated teams in the Adobe. I kind of think a lot of people projected them to be, maybe towards the bottom of the standings, when it was all said and done this year. But they've had, again, they got shut out by Marin Catholic, but that was still, a relatively close game. I think in the second half, 2-score game in that one, and then, they had that the 1-score loss to Windsor, which, again, they definitely could have won if a couple things had gone their way. But Vintage is a tough team, and they're kind of in a good position here. Again, this is the kind of funny thing with this new playoff system. I think they were a higher seed in Division 3, and now they're going to be a lower seed in Division 2 after this win. So one of these spots where it's like, great win for the program, kind of a marquee win on the season for them, but it might not benefit them in the long run. But still a huge victory for Vintage, and they're moving up from number 5 to number 4 this week. So very quality win for Vintage heading into their final game of the year. Again, hosting Cardinal Newman, and we'll talk about Newman here in a bit as well. But I'm definitely curious to kind of see how that one plays out. Again, we mentioned teams resting their starters and stuff, and I don't, again, no information, if these teams will. I've just heard some rumblings that some teams might. So we'll see. But again, both these teams definitely have something to play for this week. Newman is kind of one of those open D1 potential teams. And then Vintage, we'll kind of see if, what a win would do for them, in Division 2, or if a loss would drop them back down to D3 or something. So anyway, we will see. Crazy stuff could happen this week. But yeah, Vintage jumping up to number 4 this week in our rankings.
Yeah, regardless of where they end up, they're just going to be such a tough out for any playoff matchup for real. But, on the flip side, you kind of mentioned, what is a good loss, and we mentioned American Canyon, but for San Marin, this could be a good loss. I know we don't talk about I know we don't talk about the Marin teams a lot, but this could benefit San Marin a little bit too. You never know. So, but yeah, Vintage, they're just tough, man. They're just gritty, physical. They're football. It's football. I don't know what else to say, but football. Yeah, Vintage up to number 4 this week, Gus.
Yeah, we had some debate too about where to kind of handle the Vintage Casa Grande rankings this week. Probably some of them are more spirited debate, I'd say, this season. Especially just because looking at Vintage beat a San Marin team. San Marin has wins over Casa Grande, has a win over Windsor. Obviously Windsor beat Vintage head to head too. So definitely some debate. But I think at the end of the day, we decided, again, Casa Grande beating our number 4 team in American Canyon was enough to kind of keep them at the 3 spot. Vintage probably had a case to jump them, but I think Casa, just looking at our own internal rankings and stuff, just American Canyon being the 4 team, or being our number 4 team, and Casa Grande beating them by 2 scores too. I think they deserve to stay put at number 3. So yeah, that's where Casa Grande is staying, 7-2 on the year, undefeated still in the RC Valley. They can wrap up that title this week in the their really fun crosstown rivalry Egg Bowl game against Petaluma. They should be pretty heavy favorites. I'd say in that game, but Egg Bowl is Egg Bowl. Last game of the season, you never know what can happen. Yeah. So we will see. But Casa Grande staying put at number 3 at 7-2 on the year, looking to wrap things up. And another great season for Casa too. Seeing how we'll see if they can finish on a high note this week at Petaluma.
Yeah, totally. Petaluma Sneaky has won 3 out of the last 4 games. And Sneaky just is now playoff eligible technically.
Really good win last week over Tam too.
Totally. So that young Tam team is playing pretty good ball. So yeah, like you said, that it doesn't matter what the rankings are in the Egg Bowl. It's the Egg Bowl, man. It's going to be at Petaluma as well. So both teams are going to play with their hearts out, no doubt about it. So Casa Grande still at 3, Gus, and yeah, like you said, we'll see how they finish the regular season going into the playoffs.
No doubt. All right, top two teams, same top two teams we've had all year, but Windsor number 2 beat Rancho Cotati. We talked about that game a little bit, 18-6. Again, not a pretty game by any stretch of the imagination, but just a second gritty win, second straight kind of very gritty win for Windsor. They had those 2 tough losses to open. Adobe, took Newman down to the wire, almost came back against San Marin. Grinded out that 14-7 win over Vintage. And then, this was kind of the same thing as the Vintage game, just, kind of a defensive game. Their defense played lights out. I think Rancho had 100 yards of total offense in the game. And I think 50 of those came on one play, kind of like a broken tip pass, long ball, whatever thing. So, yeah, great defensive game from Windsor. Again, everyone in the Adobe is just beat up right now. I mean, this is the black and blue division of the RAC has definitely lived up to the name. So, we'll see. I mean, Windsor has a very tough game this week. They're hosting Marin Catholic. MC obviously, just knocked off Cardinal Newman last week. Marin Catholic can, seal up that Adobe Division title this week with a win over Windsor. And yeah, we'll see. I mean, again, Windsor's been a frisky team this year. They've been sneaky and obvious, for a 7-2 team, they've been very good. But again, against these kind of upper echelon teams, they have been scrappy and they grind out kind of wins and stuff like this too. So, Marin Catholic again, battle tested, best team in the North Bay. I think they've kind of clinched that moniker after beating Newman last week. But who knows? I mean, again, this last week could be weird, could be funky, and I think that Windsor Marin Catholic game is definitely one that that has some weirdness potential. So we'll see how it goes. But Windsor 7-2, staying at number 2 here, heading into the last week of the year.
Yeah, interesting to kind of see the difference between last year's Windsor team and this year's Windsor team. A lot more physical, a lot more gritty. Last year they were blowing out teams by a lot, with a lot of flair, finesse. But this year they're just, getting the job done when they need to with, physical, just power. So, we'll see how that helps him in the playoffs and how that helps him in the last game against Marin Catholic. But staying at 2 for another week, Gus.
Yeah, and then Cardinal Newman, number 1, still, again, they're undefeated, no longer, 8-1 on the year, kind of a disappointing loss, I'd say, to Marin Catholic last week. Only managed 3 points, just a defensive grinder of a game, and really it was only on a couple of key plays that Marin Catholic kind of got their scores and won the game. They had it was 7-0 at halftime, and Marin Catholic, I think 3 plays into the second half, busted coverage, 56-yard touchdown, and they went up 2 scores. And Newman had a good drive in response, but kind of stalled out, and they took the points on the short field goal. Newman's defense played really well, I'd say, throughout the entire game, but their offense just could not figure out Marin Catholic. So, I know it's a tough loss for the Cardinals to swallow. It's their 4th straight loss to Marin Catholic. It'll for sure have some implications for the Open, D1 playoffs as well. I would imagine, Marin Catholic is going to jump them, when it's all said and done. And Newman, again, despite having this amazing season and great, like super talented team, might end up with a first round playoff game on the road. So, we'll see. I mean, they still have to get past Vintage this week. Again, like we've said, Vintage not an easy team by any stretch of the imagination. So, we'll see. But again, still overall great season for Newman. We'll this week again, we'll kind of I think there might be some shuffling amongst some of those Open D1 teams, kind of where Newman's at. So, and then who knows, if they do lose to Vintage, that may even go a long way in benefiting them. If Newman is not in the Open D1, the highest division that they can rise to is Division 4. And, if they do end up in Division 4, they should probably cakewalk to that NCS title.
Oh, man.
It's interesting. This is going to be, some of the, the equation that I think a lot of these teams are going to start looking at this week is like, all right, does a win help? Does a loss help us? Obviously, no one is going to lose games intentionally. We're not saying that at all, but it is one of these things where teams are starting to look at this being like, all right, what's going to benefit us kind of in the long run here? So we will see how it goes. But yeah, Newman, again, great season still. I think 8-1, they can look back at the season, with a lot of pride. Not over yet by any stretch of the imagination too, but again, just disappointing loss to Maroon Catholic last week, but again, I think they should still be definitely a live wire, I'd say, for the playoffs, wherever they end up. So we'll see how that goes, but got to get past finish this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you remember correctly, Vintage gave Newman one of their toughest games last year. I think it was like 30-27 or something like that. So, and this Vintage team that's been playing well, man. We'll see. But Newman's staying pat at 1 as they've done all season.
Yep. Well, that wraps it up here for our Week 10 rankings breakdown. Again, we'll be back next week with our final rankings of the regular season. For the playoffs, we kind of put all of our rankings on hold and then do something. Once all the teams are finished playing for kind of our final final rankings of the year. But could be some funky stuff happening this week. The playoff seeding meeting will be this coming Sunday. We'll have full coverage of kind of where teams end up, some breakdowns, some reactions. It should be could be some drama this year. I think with this new playoff system, I think some teams might end up in spots where they didn't think they'd be, or it's some head scratching stuff. So very curious to see how it kind of plays out on Sunday. But could be a fun final week of the regular season. So thanks everyone again for watching, and we'll catch you guys next week.
See you guys.